I recently talked about this topic recently on a podcast. I was invited to a podcast and I talked about this topic, and the guy said, the host, you should make a video about this. And so that's what I'm doing. Um, God has a purpose for your life. Okay, let's start there. And what I want to emphasize is that many people misuse that phrase. God has a purpose for you. God has a purpose for your life. It's being misused so much. And yes, God does have a purpose for you. Yes, God has a purpose for your life specifically. Yes, your life means a lot to God. It does. In fact, it means so much to Him, to the point where He created you when He didn't have to. Him being all knowing, He chose to create you. You were an option, and He chose that option. He didn't have to do that, in fact. But the reason why people misuse that phrase, God has a purpose for your life, is because when people say purpose, they don't realize that they are confusing the word purpose with calling. They don't know that. They're mixing up definitions, right? And so purpose and calling are two different things. And I want to emphasize the differences right now. Okay, so your purpose, and listen up, your purpose is what you were created for. Why did God create you? Why do you exist? That is your purpose. What is the purpose of your existence? Was God forced to create you? Did God have to? He didn't have to. He wanted to. He pleased to do so. Your purpose, and ready, I'm going to tell you what the purpose is now, okay? So He wanted to create you, and He chose that because for the very reason that you and Him can have communion. The purpose for your existence is because God chose to create people so that He can be in relationship with. God's desire was to create a family. God wanted to create a family. We are supposed to be that family. Like we're supposed to be part of the kingdom. Why do you think God emphasizes so much as far as like relationship culture? Why do we emphasize this so much? Relationships. It's all about relationships and love and not so much religion, although both do matter, but in general, it's emphasized because that is the main purpose of your existence. God didn't have to create you, but He chose to do so, and so He created you so then your purpose, you can spend time with God, because that's why He made you. He wanted people to be with Him, right? And so God just wants your time. And so if you ever ask yourself, how come is it a big deal to spend time with God? How come is it a big deal to pray, talk with God? How come is it a big deal to read the Bible, learn about God, get to know God? Because He wants you. He wants some of you. He wants all of you. He wants you to be part of His family, because your purpose was to be part of His family in the first place. And so that is purpose. Purpose is why you were created, okay? Now, your calling is different. Your calling is this. Ready? Listen up again. Wait, let me drink some coffee. Your calling is what you are called to do for a temporary season in your life. Your calling is what you are called to do for a season that is temporary in your life. What were you called to do? It is like your current mission. What is your mission? That is calling. And that is what people confuse purpose with. If you notice, when people say your purpose is this, what is God's purpose for your life? You're thinking of mission, right? You're thinking of like, okay, what task, what objective, what thing do I have to pursue? Which kind of journey should I take on, right? And that's calling, not purpose. That's calling. You're called to do that for a specific time. Although you might not know how long that time is, right? But in general, that's calling. And your calling is what you're supposed to be working on in this very season of your life, right? And so I'm gonna give you some examples. People have the calling to be a leader in the church. People have a calling to be a business owner. It doesn't have to be religious, right? People have a calling to be a small group leader, a community leader, to be a disciple maker, to be a counselor, to be a mentor, to be a parent, to be a son, to be a husband, to be a wife, to be a preacher of the word at school. You could be a cause of positive influence in your workplace. You got to have many callings, and there are many callings, and your calling is what you are assigned to do, what mission you are assigned to accomplish. And we can have more than one. Most people have more than one. For example, me personally, I am a pastor in the church. I'm not the pastor, I'm too young for that, but I am a pastor, and I'm the young adults pastor specifically. That is my calling, to lead the young adults ministry. I'm also a CEO. I am the CEO of my own company, my own startup company, right? I'm also a worship leader at the church, so I lead worship and I lead the vocal team. And also I'm a husband right now, so I just became a husband. It's a new journey. I'm still learning how to do it, and I'm pretty sure I will never get it perfect, right? And so those are my callings. I have the calling to be a pastor, I have the calling to be a CEO, I have the calling to be a worship leader, I have the calling to be a husband, because those are missions, right? And so that's what calling is. And just to wrap it up, I would say one more coffee sip, okay? So now you know what a calling is and what a purpose is, right? And we have both. We have a purpose. We all have the same purpose. We have different callings. Okay. This is a great nugget. Okay. You need to be connected and aligned to your purpose in order for you to fulfill your calling in the most effective way. You need to be aligned and connected with your purpose. And what is that purpose? Let me ask you again. Think about it for 3 seconds. Your purpose is to spend time with God. You need to be connected with God, your creator. You need to be connected to your purpose in order to fulfill your calling in the best way possible. And so pursuing your calling with God is way smarter than pursuing your calling without God. That is a wisdom play. If you want to talk about wisdom, be wise and choose God over not having God. Choose having this genius on your side when you're pursuing your callings instead of not having them. Without a deep connection with God, you won't have godly desires. You will not have godly wisdom. You will not have godly attitudes. You will not have godly diligence. God could give you diligence as supernatural. He could give you the ability to work hard. I believe it. You will not have godly strength. You will not have a lot of things that God could have given you, but because you chose not to surrender your life to Him, it's not available, at least not yet, right? And I recommend you guys to just give your life to God. It's the best decision you could ever make, right? So guys, make the decision to be used by God in your callings. Make the decision to involve God in your missions that you are pursuing. Choose God. Choose God, okay? Remember, your purpose is spending time with God. It is spending time with Him, to be in true relationship and true connection with Him. Just to conclude, caution, do not confuse your calling with someone else's calling. That is very, very frequently happening all the time. That guy's calling looks pretty sick. I would love to do that. I would love to fulfill that mission that God never gave you. And so a lot of people do that. I've done it. And I get tempted to think that way for like 3 seconds, right? But no. You have a calling, and your calling needs to be something that God calls you to do. Because I believe God puts desires in you, right? And so even though something might not be a spiritual calling, God still puts desires in you. And so God is the one that hops you on the mission. God is the one that puts you in certain missions. He is the one. Your desire needs to come from within, and not from people. People could inspire you, right? But when you get inspiration to do a certain calling or certain mission, just make sure and get prayed up and make sure that it's something that God is allowing you and really calling you to do, right? And so but when you live a life according to God's purpose, a godly purpose, and according to a godly inspired calling, you will succeed like you would never imagine. And there should be no reason for us to be confused about how to live your life if you depend on God in both your purpose and your calling. And if you live with God, just like He lives with you, God will guide your steps in the best possible way. Just a nugget.